Remember what he said about trads? This is like
Rigids.
Around 2015. He called us rigids, and he said
Neo-Pelagian.
I mean, he said a lot of things, but what I'm thinking of is he also said Neo-Pelagians. Dig. He said with youths that want to go to the Latin Mass. He didn't actually use the term trad. He just said with all these youths that want to go to the Latin Mass, dig. There's some psychological issue. He said we had issues.
Right.
Consult your therapist is what he said. Really? Because that's funny. Because I just literally. What if you're just like a Latinophile and you just really love the language? Let's say you don't even care about the liturgy.
Yeah.
You're going to like it more. Does that mean you have psychological issues?
I don't know this guy, but I've heard of a guy like this. He just loves Latin. I don't even think he's baptized, I've heard. He just attends the Latin Mass.
Yeah, that's the guy. I mean, I don't know who he is, but that's the exact test.
Yeah, I've heard of a guy like this. Someone said, I met this guy. He goes to the Latin Mass. He's not baptized. He just likes the Latin. Like, he's so into Latin. He's like, where else during the week can I go hear some Latin? So he's like, the Latin Mass.
That was my hypothetical.
Yeah. Well, that guy exists, apparently.
Cool.
I hope he gets baptized. We should pray he gets baptized. But apparently there's a guy somewhere in the U.S. who just goes to Latin Mass, doesn't receive communion, he just goes for the Latin.
Well, so Pope Francis's sweeping criticism included him as well, even though he's not even a baptized Catholic. Right. And that guy, whatever your name is, buddy, you got psychological issues. So
yeah,
that the Pope says so. It's wild. He does the most sweeping, uncritical, poorly like circumlocuted criticisms I've ever heard. Pope Francis, when he gets mad, it's a blanket statement. And again, the press likes to paint President Donald Trump as a really, really imprecise criticizer.
Hello again, ladies and gentlemen. Michael Matt coming to you once again from the offices of the Remnant newspaper. Matteo Salvini is out of power tonight, at least for the moment. The former deputy prime minister of Italy was just too darn Catholic, evidently, and now he's paid the price for it. So what happened? Salvini evidently ticked off way too many powerful people, including the folks running the Vatican, of course. The guy refused to back away from his rosary crusade, even when the outgoing prime minister of Italy, Giuseppe Conte, was practically scolding Salvini for being irresponsible and reckless when he held up his rosary in front of Parliament. Salvini, for his part, he responded by, you guessed it, pulling out his rosary once again and kissing it in front of God and everybody. Check this out.
Di responsabilità dovrebbe evitare durante I comizi di accostare agli slogan politici I simboli religiosi.
You just gotta love this guy, right? He's awesome. Oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, it takes guts, And the fact that he had his rosary with him is kind of interesting. I doubt that he anticipated that he was going to be scolded for holding it up, and he just pulls it out like he's always got it. I love this guy. By the way, let's nail one point down. And when it comes to Salvini, we made this point, 3 years ago, I guess now, with Trump. And we're not talking about the man, his personal life. We're not vouching for that. We're not saying that Salvini is certainly is a daily communicant and whatever. What's important to all of us, no matter what we think of Salvini, the man, what's important to us is the politician. And the politician is out there saying that pro-God, pro-family, and pro-Christianity is going to win elections in Europe. And that's a stunning development. These are the very things, of course, which the New World Order, the United Nations, the Soros crowd, they've been desperate to destroy these things for a long time. And it's really interesting now that it's become politically expedient to bring them back to the forefront. The Rosary, Our Lady, Christianity. This is really, really fascinating to us as traditional Catholics especially. Because whatever you say, again, if it's politics as usual, well, he's saying the same sort of things that we're saying. We got to bring God back. We have to bring order and sanity back. We have to call on Our Lady to intercede on behalf of our states now because the devil's running the show. And remember this speech? We did this on a show a few months ago. This was an amazing speech by Salvini. Let's check it out. We entrust ourselves to the 6 patrons of Europe, to St. Benedict of Norcia, to St. Bridget of Sweden, to St. Catherine of Siena, to St. Cyril and Methodius, to St. Teresa Benedetta of the Cross. We rely on them, and we entrust to them the destiny, the future, the peace, and the prosperity of our peoples. But the really interesting thing is, obviously, you can't do this in the European Union anymore and get away with it, at least not yet. But the ones who were most ticked off by it, evidently, were Pope Francis and his little Church of Accompaniment crowd. Vatican Secretary of State, Cardinal Pietro Parolin, referring to Salvini, he said, quote, "God is for everyone, and invoking him for yourself is always very dangerous," end quote. Not sure. I have no idea where he comes up with it, but there you go. So that was a little spank, and that's the Secretary of State. That's a big deal. Father Antonio Spadaro, who's a close Vatican confidant to Pope Francis, he weighs in as well. There are those who in electoral campaigns are using God and saints. Now, this exploitation of religion seems to know no decency. And then speaking on something called Newsbook Hour, Malta's Bishop Mario Gretsch said, this is good. I don't know if you saw this one, but I like this one. He said, quote, "Seeing Salvini holding rosary beads hurt me, and it's a clear exploitation of the teachings of the Catholic Church." It hurt him. On some level, yeah, it hurt him. And this is really particularly ironic coming from Gretsch. This is the guy who told Television Malta last year that he welcomed gay unions in Catholic Malta with great satisfaction.
What does that mean?
Satisfaction? What? Yeah, I'm not even going to go there. But you might remember this guy. It shouldn't come as a surprise if you'll remember this guy, Bishop Gretsch, and his buddy, Archbishop Charles Scicluna of Malta, who jumped out early in support of Pope Francis's Amoris Laetitia, telling Maltese Catholics that divorced and remarried Catholics could not be refused communion if they discerned that they were at peace with God. Which is pretty convenient. Imagine what could you do with that? I mean, any sin that comes along, you decide God's okay with it. And
You're at peace. Oh.
at peace. Yeah, so it's all good. Good to know. It really, I mean, we laugh, but my gosh, where do these guys get this stuff? I just don't know. And all of these churchmen now, they all united as one, with una voce for a change, not against abortion in Europe, not against gay marriage, but against Matteo Salvini and his rosary campaign and his defense of Catholic Italy's sovereignty. That was his big crime.